Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we will have our guest from Career Service Center, from Bank of America Career Service, Trevor, a career counselor. So he will give us the workshop today, and I hope you will enjoy the session. After that, you will have assignment regarding what he will present to you today, okay? Enjoy. Welcome.
Thank you. Hey everybody, my name is Trevor Brown. I am one of the career counselors at Penn State Career Services. I'm here to present today on career readiness. Before I do that though, I'm curious, who has been to Penn State Career Services before? Raise your hand if you've been to our building. Hey, cool, so quite a bit. So who knows where we are located? Anybody? Yeah, where are we located? That's how you raise your hand.
Like over by the pool, like over there.
Correct. So we're near the outdoor pool. We are right next to University Health Services. So if you can find University Health Services, you can find us. So one thing that we do is people kind of stereotype us as mostly just doing internships and finding full-time employment. However, we do a lot of other things along the way. So we help first-year students who maybe have no idea what they want to study and what they want to do for careers. We put on career fairs. We host employers for different workshops. We host workshops around career development, such as resumes, cover letters. We help students correct their resumes and cover letters, make their first one, polish one up for an interview. We also do mock interviews. That's another service we have. And then some of the newer services we have as well is we have a whole professional attire closet. So if you don't have an outfit for an interview or a professional event, we have a whole closet where you can go pick one out. We also do professional headshots. So if you need a headshot for something like LinkedIn. And lastly, the other thing that we do that sometimes people forget about is we also do help with students planning for graduate school. So if you have any needs relating to your career development, don't be afraid to stop in and see us. Today, what I'm going to be presenting on is career readiness. So like Halima told you, I'm one of the full-time counselors. Before I did this, I was an academic advisor, and before that, I actually used to work in special ed. And career readiness is a really important topic because, you know, throughout the next, let's say 3.5 to maybe half a year, who's graduating this spring? Okay, so quite a bit. Who's a first-year student here? Sophomores and juniors. All right, so whatever point you're at, I want you to think about, you know, all of you at some point are either going to take maybe a part-time job over the summer or during the semester, or you're going to graduate and maybe go toward a full-time position. You want to make sure that you're prepared as possible when you graduate, that you have the skills and knowledge that employers are looking for. So, for example, one thing to think about is if you've had a job before, have you had a conflict with somebody on your team? How do you exactly resolve that in a way that is appropriate in the workforce? So what we're going to talk about today is all these things that could help you be career ready, and then also seeing how career ready you might be, and then thinking about over the next, you know, whether it's a couple months to the next, 3 years or so, how you develop those skills to make sure that you're career ready. All right, so before we start, I want you to all scan this QR code and fill out our kind of pre-survey to see how much you maybe know about career readiness before we go into the rest of this workshop. I believe it's about 4 or 5 questions, so it shouldn't be too long. Is everybody good? Okay. So the learning outcomes today is we're going to talk about how potentially a job can advance your career readiness competencies. I want to explain what the 8 career readiness competencies are. These are put on through a corporation called NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers. We're going to talk about what your proficiencies are among those 8 different competencies. And then we're going to talk about how do we put those strengths into something like a resume, or for example, when you go for an interview, how are you going to tell some stories that employers are going to value that show that you're career ready and ready for that position. And then lastly, I'm going to point out some opportunities that you could look into to potentially grow those competencies and develop your skills. All right, so career readiness is simply kind of the new career currency. So we're really thinking about this is what you need to enter the workforce. And so right now, a lot of employers, they don't necessarily care as much about what your major is anymore. They're caring more about, do you have the skills necessary to do the role that they're looking to hire for? So for example, I was meeting with a history student this week, and he's got several job interviews lined up for a variety of different business positions. You may be thinking, how does history relate to business? But one thing is, he's had a lot of communication skills. He knows how to analyze information. He knows how to articulate his thoughts very, very well in a way that's very clear to a variety of different individuals. So he has roles, for example, interviewing for an HR position for staffing at a company. So that's one thing to think about is, how can we also think about what experiences you're going to develop over these next, whether it's a couple months to the next like 3 years, that are going to be lined up so that you can articulate that to a different employer. So it's not just about your GPA, and these can be small positions that you may not think about. So for example, I had a student come in January who was wanting to get into kind of health for restaurants and stuff like that. Really great. Told me was actually that she worked at Wendy's at one point. Because when she was at Wendy's, they had very strict kind of standards on here's how all the food safety, like all the food safety standards. Here's how long something can be in the refrigerator. Here's how it needs. Have that is could also be a class project. Students often don't realize this, but in class projects, you're often working in a team. You often have to solve different problems. Maybe you're up presenting in front of a large group. All of these are skills that employers might eventually like. Okay, so we're going to talk in today's agenda a little bit more about what is career readiness. I'm going to introduce you to all 8 of those competencies. We're going to do that readiness inventory. We're going to reflect on it, and then we're going to actually start your career readiness plan. So career readiness, I kind of explained that a little bit, but this is once again helping prepare you for after college. Also, any of these skills are things that you can also work on during college and help develop. And employers, even at the college level, you know, let's say you're applying for a job that is at the creamery. They're still going to want to see that you're having all these competencies and that you're also using this opportunity to grow your competencies. So the 8 competencies. Let me think here. Yeah, so basically these are developed by NACE, National Association of College and Employers. And the 8 ones are career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, equity and inclusion, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and technology. So if you all start thinking, you know, some of you may instantly say, hey, I feel really good in technology, but maybe I'm not as strong in leadership. We all have different levels of each of these. And that's one thing to be thinking about is if you're feeling really insecure and not as competent in one, how can we grow this over the next, you know, several months to 3 years? So career and self-development. So this one's a little trickier, but this is always thinking of how can I grow? How can I become a better individual? And what are areas that I may be able to strengthen? So for example, maybe this is collaborating with other departments to build better connections, to make sure that you're more knowledgeable of everything out there. This could also just be thinking about, for example, you know, at most places, technology is constantly changing. And if it's changing, how are you using that as a element to improve on? Communication, that's pretty self-explanatory. Critical thinking, how are you looking at information and figuring out exactly what it's asking and figuring out the proper way to respond to it and what's relevant. Equity and inclusion, you want to be able to demonstrate awareness, attitude, knowledge, and skills so that you can engage with a whole bunch of different individuals. And then we also have leadership. How do you lead a team? How do you use your strengths to help meet an organization's goals? Professionalism, this may vary in different workplaces, but how are you making sure that, when you're an employee for a company, you are representing that company. So if you're going out somewhere, you're a reflection of the bigger picture. Teamwork, this is a very strong one because most of the time you're rarely ever working completely alone. And how are you making sure that you're seeing all viewpoints and working well and productive with the team? And then technology, how do you leverage this for various companies? And this is a hot topic right now because, as all of you probably have experienced, AI is really changing different kind of workforce opportunities, and different companies are using this in different ways and finding ways to incorporate into their full-time kind of goals and work. Okay, so career and self-development. This is the one that I said is a little trickier. So this is really making sure that you're doing the self-reflection, and that is something that we're going to do a lot of today. Identify these areas for continuous growth and feedback. So if you ever have a yearly check-in with a supervisor, what are some of those goals? How are you going to make sure that you're improving on them? Also, how do you advocate for yourself? We've all been in a position where you're like, I'm not really sure how to do this task properly. Are you going to advocate and reach out to a supervisor and figure it out? Or are you going to try to tackle it on your own? It can depend on the situation, but you want to make sure that you're doing this in an appropriate way. You want to display curiosity, making sure that you're looking for opportunities to grow. And then once again, maintaining these professional connections throughout it. All right. So this next step is we're going to be completing this inventory. So before we start this, I want to let you all know that this is not a test. You are not being graded on it. You do need to complete it, but the scores are just for you to kind of look at and discuss with the people in this class. And so it's going to take about 8 to 10 minutes, and it's going to talk about those 8 competencies that I just talked about that employers value the most. And so hopefully this report will give you a better idea of where you're at in terms of those competencies. And once again, all I ask is that you answer these honestly, because it's going to give you better results if you do, so that you can figure out how you're going to grow over time. All right, so what I want you all to do is scan this QR code. If you do not have a phone or your phone battery is dead, let Halima know and she can send you the link to do it on a laptop. For some reason, Ricky's like working on there, so she's clicking on it and sending it to you.
Thank you.
we're going to give everybody about 2 more minutes to finish up the Okay, so I believe almost everybody has probably finished by now. If not, keep on filling it out. Feel free to take a couple more minutes if you need a couple more minutes. But what we're going to do next is we're going to reflect upon the career readiness inventory here and look at your report. All of you should have gotten a PDF, I believe, sent to your email, right? If not, it should be right when you finished as well. Does everybody get that report? Yes. Not seeing any. Did any get at the end when you submit it? It should go, check your Penn State email if you haven't yet. Is there a PDF in there explaining what your, or at the bit that says what your results are? Nobody saw one of these, the sample report that looks somewhat like this here. Interesting, because it should have gone through there. So none of you got any results. Is that accurate? And it didn't, when you started this, did you fill out your email as well? So it should go to your Outlook email and give you some results. And none of you got an email from Outlook. Sorry, can you repeat that? I couldn't hear all the way over here. Okay, so it doesn't actually give you any of those results. Okay, so I'm going to figure out eventually how to, yeah. Okay, this is, I wish they had told me this before I came in today. I didn't know it was going to get sent there. So if you all check your junk email or spam box, you should now be able to find that report in there. So what I want you all to do now is find that and open that and start to take a look at it. And you're going to see here, it kind of has your different areas of the readiness if you are emerging, understanding, early application, or advanced application, as well as where you're at kind of on that. Remember, there's no right or wrong spot. If you're super high in something, it tells us, hey, this maybe is a strength of yours already. If you're low, it's something to think about. How are we going to work on developing that? So I'm going to give you all, since we now know it's in the junk box, I'm going to give you all, let's say 3 or 4 minutes to open that up and start looking at it. Has everybody been able to find it in their junk box? Now let me know that that's where it's at. Okay, so now that all of you have had a minute to look over your results, what I want you to do is I want you to pair up with somebody that is near you or in your row, or if you're a little further away, find somebody closer, preferably in groups of 2. If you want to form a group of 3, great. But I want you to answer these questions. How accurate was the report? Did anything surprise you? Were you stronger in certain areas than you thought you were? Were there areas of improvement that surprised you as well? What do you consider your greatest skill or competency? Share an example of when you demonstrated this competency and which ones need the most work and how do you plan on strengthening these? So we're going to take about 5 minutes to kind of pair up and discuss this. So find people in your row or nearby and please do that.
Tuesdays I have 3 classes. Yeah, after this one I have to go to Storm. Today's my early day. Yeah. I don't even ever go to math. And it's bad, but like, well, it's top hat. But like, bro, I'm gonna do that shit in my dorm. And then I'm gonna teach myself the week of material in 20 minutes. I know. I mean, I only went to, I've been going like once a week, like 4 days a week. So, you know what? I'm gonna go 2 days this week. I went yesterday. I'm gonna go tomorrow. I need to catch up on what we're doing a little bit. I mean, I fell behind, but then I was watching hella YouTube and I like understood it, and then I went to class and he's doing it on the board, and then I got half of it, and then the other half of it.
How do we turn this back on? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, everybody, we are going to regroup here. And I'm curious, is anybody willing to share any of these questions with the main group here today? Any brave volunteers? Anybody find any surprises in their report? Yeah.
Yeah, mine said I was bad at technology, which I didn't think I was that bad, but
Yeah. Any thoughts on why that was a surprise for you, or what? Why it turned out that way?
I answered that I had a poor adaptation to like new technology, and I think that just made it go like way down for some reason. So that surprised me.
Yeah, so that's something maybe to think about. I'll tell you, for me, that's my lowest category on the competencies. Other surprises for people? Yes, over there.
Similarly, my competency that needed the most work was also technology, but I think it was because I put like that I ethically use technology wrong because of AI. But since I want to work in marketing, like it can be a really helpful tool. So I think that it was assuming that I don't use it in like a correct way, but I can definitely see like both points, and I could like strengthen how I use other like things online.
Awesome, thank you. Other people want to share? Okay, does anybody have a skill or competency that they think they're really great at, or what they consider their strongest? They want to share about and why? Yeah, in the back row.
So my test said that I wasn't good at this, but so my test I think messed up because it said I didn't have any progress for anything. But I think critical thinking would be something that should have been completely up, yet it wasn't.
Okay, did anybody else, out of curiosity, have it where they got no results and everything just said emerging? Okay, because there were a couple other people that happened for, and I'm wondering if there's a glitch in there. And I had told another student that, yeah, if you're seeing that result, critical thinking is probably a skill you have because you're realizing something looks off in the results. But thank you for sharing that. And if you're somebody who had all emerging in yours, if you don't mind shooting an email to Halima so that we can investigate that and figure out why. I know you all have an assignment related to this. And so I don't know if something glitched in the software for those few people. Anybody else who had a greatest skill or competency? Yeah.
Yeah, I just said the skill set professionalism was one of my strong suits, and I think that's accurate because I can write a good email and stuff surrounding that.
Awesome. How are other ways that professionalism might play a role in the workforce? Yeah.
Just like interacting with your coworkers, but also like authority figures in the workplace, and there are different ways that you like verbalize your thoughts to different people and different power dynamics and structures you need to understand.
Yes, you're being very thoughtful in how you're going to be a representation for that company. Also, things like showing up on time, looking presentable, being prepared. Those are all things that play a role in there. And also, to think about it, also it makes me wonder if you can write a really good email. Not only does that play a role in professionalism, does it also play a role in communication? Because communication can be written as well as oral, and that is something to think about as well. Anybody else have any skills or competencies they want to share that they feel really confident in? Maybe they even used it in some sort of job or some situation. Anybody have an example they want to share? Yeah.
One of my highest skills is critical thinking. I plan on going to the engineering side of pretty much the critical thinking that I hold, just building my career and that
Awesome. Thank you. Does anybody now have any examples that they have when they demonstrated one of their competencies? Like, has anybody had a group project that they felt went really well, where they were a good team member? Come on, somebody has to have one example. All right, we'll move on to the next one. What competencies do people feel they need the most work in? Anybody want to share for this one? Yeah.
Probably teamwork, just because I'm not really good with working with other people. Like, it's very much like my way or the highway.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So that's something to think about. You know, we all have it. Some people here love working as a team. Some people hate it. It is something to think about as we move forward. If you are somebody who's like, hey, I don't like doing it, maybe it's something that you need to be mindful of as you go to positions. And maybe also when you're looking at future careers after graduation, you try to choose one where you're more independent.
I don't know if you'd call it a competency, but I think a lot of this is really formalized in that, like, it talks about like having confidence and stuff. But I think what's really important is that you take a genuine interest in whatever you're doing, and you care about it, and do things with a smile, not because you feel you have to, but because you want to. And everyone will see that, and it'll make going through career easier. So I think that's a competency people need to work on, is just being genuine and enthusiastic.
Yeah, so I think you could kind of put that under some of that self-career development, is trying to find a career or a job that is hopefully fitting with your personality and your interests. That does tend to make it easier when you're dealing with all these other aspects, because if you feel happy about what you do and you like what you're doing and the mission of a company, you're more likely to fall into higher areas of these other competencies because you are sharing more of that mission. Other people have a competency they want to share that they feel like they need to work a little bit more on. All right, cool. So the last part then is, how do you plan on strengthening these? Did anybody have any ideas when they were paired up on how they're going to improve on any of their competencies? Yeah. Yeah. So potentially, yeah. So thinking about how in classes you're going to have to work in teams and how you're going to troubleshoot those situations. How, for example, how many of you have been in a class, and not a class, but a team or a group project where one person just didn't do anything? Yeah. So how do you work with people like that? That's going to probably come up at some point. And so thinking about, hey, if I'm going to work as a team, how can I inspire other people? How can I make sure that my communication's good? How can I troubleshoot maybe with that person or my other team members if somebody's not pulling their weight? Other ways to strengthen competencies. Does anybody have a part-time job this semester that they want to share with the group? And like, what's something that you do, whether you feel it's a strength at that job or something that you feel you want to improve on at that job? Yeah.
I work at Starbucks. It's not very hard. I feel like a strength is just like time management and making sure everything gets done on time.
Awesome. And is there anything that you feel like, hey, I want to work on a little more and improve?
I don't think so.
No?
I'm pretty content.
Awesome. But one thing to think about is these positions that you might say, hey, this feels pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. There's a lot of positions where, you're going to go into a workforce and they're going to ask a question. How have you had to deal with a busy situation where you're overwhelmed with a lot of people or a lot of responsibilities? And that's a position that you can maybe fall back on and talk about. All right. So next thing. So starting your career readiness plan. So all of you, I want you to all think, when you go through your report, think about what is one thing that you really want to strengthen, whether this is something that is at a place of employment, if it is in a class, if it is part of a student club or org, and then try to think about this as an intentional goal that you want to try to follow through with this semester. You can always talk to your professor about how to improve on these throughout this semester and into next. We also offer at Career Services, we offer hour-long appointments that are one-on-one where we can discuss this and figure out, hey, what things might you want to do over a certain time period to improve some of your competencies, but also figure out how can you maybe describe the competencies that you already have in a way that shows your strengths to an employer. And then lastly, also, you could always do this in a mock interview as well. We offer 30 or 60-minute mock interviews where you can kind of give us a hypothetical job description and we would prepare an interview for it, or you can give us an actual job you have lined up and we will prepare that interview and you practice just like a real one. And that's a great way to try to show off some of those competencies as well. And then lastly, we have a variety of different workshops and events. So, there's certain things such as going to a career fair. How are you communicating properly and professionally with recruiters? That is a skill that you can build and gain. How many of you have been to an interview and it was really scary at first and you were nervous? Probably most of you. So this is something that the more prep you do, the more you practice things, the better you can get. So lastly, if you don't mind filling out this QR code to talk about how you felt about the career readiness. And then after this, I'm going to show you Focus 2, which is one of our online career assessment tools. Okay. Okay, so how many of you have heard of the Focus 2 career assessment? Okay, so I saw one hand raised. Anybody on this side? Okay, so Focus 2 is a new assessment tool that the university obtained maybe about a little over a year to a year and a half ago. And Focus 2 is a really cool online assessment where you can answer a variety of multiple choice questions, and it will help educate you on different careers that you can do with a major or certain majors that might fit for you. Even if you're about to graduate it is still going to give you information on the career field you might be thinking about going into. So there's a couple different ways to get there. So one option is, how many of you have heard of Nittany Careers? Okay, so quite a few. So Nittany Careers, if you type that into Google, Nittany Careers, Penn State, it's going to lead to a website which has a whole bunch of resources on it. Also has a job board on it for companies that are looking to hire Penn State students. But also under the resource tab, there is a link to Focus 2. So that's one way to get there. The other way is if you go on Google and you type in Career Readiness Penn State into it, or go to our Career Services website, you will eventually get to this assessment. So if you click on this one that says Career Readiness, and then you scroll down to about about halfway to 2/3 down the page, you're going to see something that says Launch the Focus 2 Career Self-Assessment. So when you click on this here, it might bring up this page. If you're already logged in via Outlook, it may also bring up a little thing where you have to fill in your campus. Make sure that you fill that out. You click on Student Site, and then you hit Continue. I believe this is something all of you have to do for class, right? Okay. So with it right here, you're going to see there's the career planning involvement. How much have you already started this process? There's your academic strengths, and then there's Am I Career Ready? One thing you could always do is if you're curious about how the career readiness inventory, the one you just did, compares to the Am I Career Ready, you could fill out both and then see the results and see how they compare. You're then going to see that there are 4 different assessments. So there's a work interest assessment, there's a values assessment, a personality assessment, and a skills assessment. Halima, do you know which ones are required for the, I think you all have to fill out the work interest and maybe the skills assessment. Either way, I'm sure it says on Canvas in your syllabus which ones you have to fill out. So when you're looking at something like this, the work assessment is pretty straightforward. It's going to ask questions that there's, once again, no right or wrong answer for. To what degree would you enjoy designing graphic art images and illustrations for advertising media? For me, I put not at all. That's not something I'm highly interested in. And you're going to see here that as you start going through things, you're going to put down different results, and then it's going to give you kind of a variety of different results that relate to your interests. So for example, with the work interest one, sorry, I need to click through all of it now to get through it. I'll show you what some of the results will look like. So when you get on here and finish all these questions, and I believe there's about 40 of them on this one, you're going to see that it's going to show something called the Holland-code. The Holland-code is a really cool kind of psychological kind of assessment that shows where your work interests are. So you can see for me, social is really high. I like working with other people. I like roles where there's a lot of communication. Enterprising, conventional, investigative, realistic, artistic are other ones on there. It's going to give you a description of what these are. And so this is going to give you a little more insight into what some of your strengths are and how they can be applied to different careers. So then it's going to spit out some different careers that might be a good fit for you based off your Holland-code. We have to remember that this is not necessarily pulling in all my skills or values yet. It's just pulling in that first assessment. And so you can see here a variety of different things. Equal opportunity representative, that's probably because I'm very high in social, but also the enterprising role. If you see a position that sounds interesting to you, so if I'm looking at this family caseworker, I can click on that there. Oh, sorry, I double clicked. Either way, it's going to give you a whole breakdown of what that role or career is about. Then further down, you can combine results. You can also look down here and explore the different possibilities about what to do with that major or a certain occupation. So if there's one that you want to do, so for example, we had somebody in here who's thinking about becoming an engineer. If we take a look at this and go to something like mechanical engineering, let's see. You can see here that it's going to give a whole breakdown. There's going to be a video of what this career is like. It's going to give a description of it, the general training for it, how it fits with your work interest profile. So for me, this doesn't actually fit very well. It's going to show you about the working conditions, different majors that could be done to eventually become a mechanical engineer, and different associations relating to it. and then also here the job outlook, the salary ranges, etc. And that's the Focus 2 assessment. Other questions for me about any of this material or the career readiness inventory or anything else? Awesome, Mary. So Focus 2, you need to do this for one of your homework assignments. It's due February 25th. Alima, do you have other things to tell the class? Yeah, I have all my information.
Thank you so much.
One last thing. So once again, if anybody needs anything, we're right next to University Health Services and the Bank of America Career Services building. Nittany Careers is the best way to schedule a one-on-one appointment. There's also an events tab on there. So any of our career fairs, development kind of workshops, etc. Those are all in there. On the resources tab, there's things like Focus 2, what can I do with this major, other resources as well. And so feel free to explore any of that at any point. There's also a job board on there. And if you have questions, Halima used to work with me over there, so she can answer any of your questions about that. And I'll stick around a little bit if anybody has individual questions for me after class.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I hope you enjoyed, and for the assignment, it will be like you'll learn more about yourself. And for the group project, I have several questions about that. So you need to think about any problem that you can solve, what work with your group. So be creative and think about any problem. I saw one group, they already submit their problem and what they think to solve it. So is there any question regarding the upcoming assignments or group project? Okay, so before we leave, there is some student who still need to take the attendance. Yeah.
One question.
Yeah. The focus?
Yeah, the Focus 2.
Which one is it? Yeah. Just
So-
because there's like 7.
CRI.
So one thing to note is none of the assessments on Focus 2 are going to take that long. So for example, most students are able to fill out all the assessments within like 20 something minutes usually. So I don't know the exact ones you have to fill out, but if you fill out an extra one, it shouldn't take you any more than usually 5 minutes an assessment. That one I showed you first with the multiple choice ones, that first big one, that's the one that takes the longest.